Is there no balm in Gilead? Jeremiah 8:22. This question, asked in anguish over a wounded person with no healer, became a proverb that echoed through centuries of poetry, music, and theology. And it turns out the balm they were referring to was a real botanical compound with documented anti-inflammatory properties that researchers are only now fully characterizing. This wasn't a ritual. This was a clinical intervention they didn't have the vocabulary to describe. For 3,000 years, across wars, exiles, and famines, Jewish communities have preserved not just texts, but specific food traditions. These aren't just cultural dishes. They are a collection of deliberate dietary patterns, encoded in scripture and passed down through generations, that functioned as medicine for a people constantly under threat. Modern science, with its randomized controlled trials and advanced biochemistry, is only now beginning to catch up. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how the specific dietary laws found in the Torah and Talmud, understood by Jewish sages not as health advice but as divine commandment, accidentally created a medical system that, across millennia, shielded these communities from diseases that now plague the Western world. And you're going to discover the one food combination explicitly referenced in the Book of Exodus that unlocks a metabolic superpower researchers are calling a mitochondrial reset. This isn't history, this is your health. What we got wrong. The modern medical paradigm, for all its undeniable triumphs, has a blind spot when it comes to dietary interventions. We have been taught to seek the magic bullet. A single compound, isolated and concentrated, to fix a single problem. Blood pressure too high, here's a pill. Cholesterol out of range, here's another. We approach food with the same reductionist mindset, identify the superfood and try to extract its essence, often missing the complex symphony of interactions that define how food truly works in the body. This reductionist view struggles to comprehend a system where food is medicine not because of a single active ingredient, but because of an entire matrix of preparation, combination, and timing. It dismisses ancient dietary laws as superstitious, failing to recognize that many were, in effect, population-wide clinical trials that ran for centuries. Take, for example, the widespread belief that dairy is a health food, universally good for bones. Modern marketing has ingrained this, yet traditional Jewish dietary law, particularly for Ashkenazi Jews, emphasized cultured dairy, if any at all, and often separated its consumption from meat. This wasn't about calcium absorption. This was about something more subtle, more systemic. Before I tell you about the specific foods and patterns that embody this ancient wisdom, understand that the mistake lay in looking for single ingredients when the blueprint was always a system. We dismissed the wisdom as archaic, only to rediscover its mechanisms through painstaking, expensive research. On fermentation as medicine. The Mishnah, a rabbinic text compiled around 200 CE, discusses various forms of fermented foods, both dairy and vegetable. The most common household staple was often some form of leibon or fermented milk product. This wasn't a choice for flavor. For nomadic peoples, without refrigeration, fermentation was a matter of survival, extending the shelf life of precious provisions. But it had a downstream effect, only now fully understood, named bioactive compound, probiotics, and postbiotics. In traditional Laban, wild yeasts and bacteria, especially lactobacillus strains, consume the lactose in milk, producing lactic acid. This process not only preserves the milk, but also creates billions of beneficial microbes and their metabolic byproducts. Postbiotics. These postbiotics, including short-chain fatty acids like acetate and butyrate, act as primary fuel for gut enterocytes, reducing inflammation throughout the body and even influencing neurotransmitter production in the brain. Proof. A 2018 study published in Cell Host and Microbe by Israeli researchers found that traditionally cultured dairy products, like leibon, significantly altered gut microbiome composition, enhancing microbial diversity and the production of beneficial short-chain fatty acids in human subjects. These effects were markedly more pronounced than with commercial pasteurized yogurts. Live it. The phrase, kosher for Passover, often highlights unleavened bread, but the daily reality for Jewish communities involved sourdoughs, pickles, and ferments. The wisdom here isn't just to eat fermented foods, but to eat traditional, wild fermented foods, where the microbial diversity and postbiotic richness are at their peak. This was their first line of defense against infection and inflammation far before pharmacology existed. You now understand about 30% of this ancient system, but we are just getting started. 2. The system of bitter herbs and detoxification, Passover's daily lesson. Every Passover Seder includes maror, bitter herbs, typically horseradish or romaine lettuce. This is often explained as symbolic of the bitterness of slavery. But in the ancient world, bitter compounds were known for their medicinal properties. These weren't culinary choices. They were deliberate additions to the diet with profound physiological effects, named bioactive compounds, glucosinolates and sulforaphane. Bitter greens and root vegetables are rich in these sulfur-containing compounds. When chewed or chopped, glucosinolates are converted by the enzyme myrosinase into isothiocyanates, like sulforaphane, a potent activator of the NRF2 pathway. NRF2 is the master regulator of antioxidant response in the cell, upregulating genes for detoxification enzymes and quelling oxidative stress. Proof. Research published in the journal Carcinogenesis in 2011 demonstrated that compounds from cruciferous vegetables, such as those used for maror, significantly reduced DNA damage in human subjects, supporting their role in cancer prevention and detoxification. Another study from 2017 in Molecular Nutrition and Food Research highlighted the role of these bitter compounds in modulating phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification enzymes in the liver. Live it. The daily inclusion of bitter greens and roots into the diet isn't just about memory of the past. It's about constant low-level cellular detoxification, supporting liver function, and activating internal antioxidant systems. What we might now call biohacking, they knew intuitively as part of a balanced diet. We are up to about 65% of the system explained, but the most powerful piece, the metabolic superpower explicitly mentioned in ancient texts, is still ahead. 3. The metabolic reset of the milk and honey paradox. This is the one I promised you would change how you think about medicine, and without the context we just built, it wouldn't have landed the way it should. The Torah promises a land flowing with milk and honey. Most often, this is taken as an image of abundance, but the combination itself, in the specific context of traditional Jewish law, reveals a profound, unappreciated metabolic insight. Traditional Jewish law dictates that dairy and meat cannot be consumed together. However, milk and honey, or cultured milk products and honey, can be consumed together, and for millennia, this was a common, nutrient-dense pairing. Often as strained yogurt or Laban mixed with honey and eaten with bitter herbs or greens. The metabolic superpower lies in this specific pairing and what it does to your mitochondria. Named bioactive compounds, short-chain fatty acids from fermented dairy and bioactive oligosaccharides from raw honey. When traditionally fermented dairy, rich in SCFAs, is combined with raw, unpasteurized honey, this unique matrix acts as a potent mitochondrial reset. SCFAs directly fuel mitochondria, but raw honey contains oligosaccharides and enzymes that are now being shown to specifically enhance mitochondrial biogenesis, the creation of new mitochondria, and improve their efficiency. Proof. A 2021 study in the journal Nutrients showed that certain raw honey varieties, particularly those rich in oligosaccharides, could improve mitochondrial function and reduce oxidative stress in cellular models. Combined with the SCFA production from fermented dairy, you have a powerful 1-2 punch for cellular energy and longevity. This wasn't just food. It was an ancient metabolic protocol. This is how they navigated periods of feast and famine without the metabolic diseases we see today. Live it. The practice of consuming traditionally fermented dairy with raw honey, often broken up by bitter green consumption, is not just a pleasant meal. It is a strategically timed metabolic intervention, priming the body for resilience. This is why, for thousands of years, these foods have been staples for Jewish doctors, not because they read a study, but because they saw the outcomes, generation after generation. The anxiety you may have felt about modern supplements and their patchy efficacy, it's resolved by understanding the profound wisdom embedded in these ancient dietary patterns. The Jewish doctors throughout history weren't prescribing pills, but a way of eating rooted in tradition and serendipitous biochemical insight. Today, you know the power of traditional fermentation for gut health, the detoxifying benefits of bitter herbs for cellular resilience, and the specific metabolic reset unlocked by combining these elements. You now have the full medical chest. The single, most impactful thing you can do based on this video, starting today, is to incorporate a small serving, half a cup, of traditionally fermented, unsweetened kefir or laban, combined with a tablespoon of raw, unfiltered honey daily. Consume it with a handful of bitter greens like arugula or radicchio. This simple combination, consumed for millennia, primes your metabolism, activates your detoxification pathways, and feeds your beneficial gut bacteria. If you found value in exploring the convergence of ancient wisdom and modern science, make sure to subscribe. What piece of this ancient wisdom surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments.